Hello everyone, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I am building the Phantom model rocket from Estes. Now this is not meant to be flown, this is a display model. It's transparent so that you can see what's actually inside the rocket there. Now I've wanted one of these since I started in rocketry about 45 years ago, and I finally got around to buying one and putting it together. So we'll go ahead and open this up. Obviously that blade needs changed. Alright. As always, let's make sure that we have all of the parts here. Here's our fin assembly. And then we've got the body tube, the nose cone, and this cutaway engine. We've also got the motor mount inside there as well. It is also transparent. And then in the parts package here, go ahead and open that up. We've got a shock cord, 2 centering rings, one of which is split. The other one. Okay, this is a tube sleeve for the engine clip. Okay, and then here we've got a launch lug, parachute, little screw eye that'll go into the nose cone, some recovery wadding, and our motor clip there. Okay, so we will make sure that we actually have everything. Okay, and this ought to be interesting. They use a regular Estes paper shock cord mount here, and so somewhere in here you'll actually get to see how that goes on. Now the problem is, usually you would put those in with a wood glue. We're going to use either super glue or plastic model cement for that, so it'll look a little bit different. But the nice thing is you'll be able to see exactly where that should go. It's one of the things I've found with my students, that they often have difficulty visualizing just how far down that needs to be. So it looks like we've got everything. I will start in on the build as soon as I clear this away. First we'll build the motor mount, and so we'll need the clear motor mount tube here. Now if you look closely here, there is a little slot already cut into this. This will be for the engine clip. So this will be the forward end of the rocket, or of the motor mount for the rocket. We don't use this ring right away. That comes a little bit later. We do need the split ring and the engine clip here. And we'll also need the sleeve, the white ring there. Okay. Now they're showing using tube type plastic cement for all of the connections here, and that is fine. You can also use gel type super glue, but I'm going to go ahead and use the tube type plastic cement as they do. Now to mark this, you'll probably want to use something like a fine point Sharpie here. Pencil is not going to work well. And so we need to measure 1 inch from the aft end. Or 25 millimeters for the metrically inclined. That's going to go right there. Okay, now I'm going to do this in just a little bit different way. I'm going to put the sleeve on first because that'll help keep our engine clip in place. Okay, so the right angle there is going to go into that hole. Alright, and then I'm going to take the sleeve here, and I'm just going to dry fit this at the moment. So no glue yet. It is pretty tight. that needs to go over the engine clip and down to where we made that 1-inch mark. A little too far there. So about to there. Alright, and then this ring is going to be flush with the aft end of the motor mount tube here. And then the gap there is for the clip to be able to move in and out there. Okay, now for this you might want to have a little piece of masking tape handy. It's actually bigger than I need, but it'll work. Okay, so here we're going to put in a bead of glue. Get tissue ready in case this stuff runs. Alright, so we're going to go right along the edge, just enough to show a bead. We don't want a lot of goo here. And don't glue the engine clip. Okay, now we do want to make, I'm going to move that glue just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to put this ring on. And again, this should be flush here. You can even let it come out just a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to use my tape to hold that in place while the glue dries. Alright, and then I'm also going to take my sleeve ring there, and I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on this. It does not need much at all. This is just to kind of tack it in place. Okay, and being careful not to move the other ring or drop it. Okay, we're just going to slide that back to our mark. Okay, and now the excess here, I don't want to smear it across the plastic. Instead, I'm going to kind of wipe it upward over the ring. Because since this is a display, we really don't want big blobs of glue everywhere. Okay, make sure I haven't messed up my clip down there. Alright, I'm going to set that aside for just a little bit and let it dry. While I'm waiting for the glue to dry on the motor mount, I'm going to skip ahead here to the nose cone. And so we'll need the little screw eye for this, and it's going to go in this little hole. Now you don't see this particular method too often anymore. Most of Estes kits come with molded nose cones that have an eye built into them. The Alpha 3 though does look very much like this. In fact, this whole kit looks a whole lot like the Alpha 3. It's just transparent. So here I'm just going to add a little touch of glue right in that hole. And then I'm just going to screw in my screw eye here. Basically until it gets very resistant. So you can kind of see right there where the threads are going, which is part of the idea behind this. All right, and then we want to make sure that the flat part here is going more or less parallel to that edge. If you have it perpendicular, it may catch on the body tube there. Okay, now we'll set that aside. My glue still isn't dry, so now I'm going to move on to the parachute. Now if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I don't like tying parachutes directly to rockets. Instead I use a snap swivel, and I've got one here. This does not come with the kit, however. Alright, so if you just want to do it the way they show, go ahead and open up the parachute. Okay, and then find all the loops of shroud lines. Right, gather those up on one finger, and then grab the parachute by its middle, which is usually about where it all got folded there, but it may not be perfect. Alright, now I'm going to move the relative lengths of these lines until my corners are all roughly in the same position. Alright, now if you want to do it the way the instructions show, alright, then you would pass these loops. You may have to really scrunch them down there, but pass those through the screw eye. Alright, reopen the loops. And now you can either pass the parachute through and pull it tight, or you can pass the nose cone through and pull it tight, either one. Now I'm not going to pull it tight because I'm not going to do this. But if you don't have a screw eye, or you just like it more permanent, that's the way to go. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and recheck my lines now that I've kind of been messing around with stuff here. Alright, and once more, I'm going to gather those down into a little bundle there. And now in this case, I'm going to put it through the swivel side, the round end of my snap swivel. Bring all those lines through. Okay, reopen the loops there, and I'm going to pass the entire snap swivel through the loops, pull the loops down, and then pull them tight. Alright, recheck your lines. Now, since this is actually never going to fly, it's not quite as critical. But if it looks like you need to redo it, if you try again, just loosen this and do so. Once you have this where you want it, if this were a flying rocket, I would say put a little dab of white glue or wood glue on there. Since this is a demo rocket, you don't need to do that. I'm going to use just a little drop of super glue to keep those lines from coming loose. Okay, and I'm just going to add a little bit of alcohol to accelerate the drying there. Alright, and now when my rocket is ready to completely assemble, I simply open up the little clip here. Alright, and then that fits over like that, and then you just clip it back in. And so the advantage here is that maybe you want to show not only what a parachute looks like inside the rocket, but maybe you'd like to try it with a streamer. And this allows you to do that. You can just pop this out really easily, put a streamer on instead, and then go back to the parachute if you want to. Okay? In flight, at least theoretically, this is supposed to help keep your shroud lines from twisting quite as much. In practice, it may help a little bit, but mostly it's the handiness of being able to change these out really quickly. So for now, we're going ahead and let that continue drying, let that continue drying, and we're going to go over here to our body tube and mount the launch lug on it. Now this is going to go on the aft end of the body tube, and it's going to be flush with the aft end like that. Okay. Now normally you would draw a line down like they kind of show here using a door frame or a line guide. I'm just going to eyeball this so I don't have a residual line there. Okay. Go ahead and you can either use the plastic model cement, or you could use gel type super glue here. Okay, and then we're going to stick that on. And now I'm going to eyeball this as straight as I can. Looks like it's going to be about there. And what I can do is, since I have a grid on this, I can kind of do this from above. I think that'll do it. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry. And in fact, at this point, we're going to take a break and just let all of this glue dry. The glue on my motor mount is dry, and I've removed the masking tape from that. And now what we're going to do is this is going to go up inside the fin assembly and should fit flush with the aft end. The motor mount tube should come out through the forward end here, like this. And then we're going to glue on the other centering ring at this time. Now, something you want to do here is take your thumbnail and kind of chamfer out the inside edge, and this will make it easier to get onto the tube here. And I'm just going to dry fit this to begin with. Alright, you do have to kind of hang on to it off one end. Now, my personal preference is to put the engine clip and the launch lug on the same side. So I'm going to orient this so I'll be able to do that later. Okay, and then we're going to put this ring on here. Okay, and that's really the only place we need to glue it. So I'm going to go ahead and add my glue to the tube here. And that is just coming out really fast. Don't need really that much at all. So we'll just spread that around. If some of it gets pushed down into there, that's fine. It'll actually make it stronger. What we want to avoid is fingerprints in the glue where they can be seen. Alright, so this should fit very snugly, and the idea here is to trap the motor mount between the two rings there. So there shouldn't be any play on that. Okay, we'll let that dry for just a little bit. If you do have some excess glue here, go ahead and wipe that off. Okay, we did that part, and now we're going to glue the body tube on. Okay, so this now is going to fit over here and down, and I'm going to line it up there with my engine clip again. Okay, so here we will go ahead and add another ring of glue. Now, when you're working with this type of glue and you do get some excess, it's actually better not to try and wipe it up, because that makes smears that will go into the plastic. In general, once this stuff dries, it's not very noticeable. Okay, so here we're going to put that all the way on. I'm going to align my launch lug again with the engine clip, and now I'm going to let that dry in an upright position. Now notice my fins are a little bit bent. That'll go away partly on its own just once it's left out. But if you do need to straighten them, do it gently a little bit at a time. Don't try and bend them all over at once or you crack the fin. Alright, so one more time we're going to allow that to dry. And next I'm going to cut out the the shock cord mount here. And if you don't want to cut up your instructions, just make a photocopy of this and cut up the photocopy. Now for the rest of this, I recommend wearing some rubber gloves because you'll probably get the cement all over your fingers here. So I'm going to change into gloves really quick and come back. Now in preparation for this messiness that's going to happen, We're going to go ahead and put down some paper towels here. Alright, and here's our shock cord. Now the way the instructions show this is to put our shock cord down the middle, overlapping the 2 and the 3, and we would then fold the 1 over the 2, and then the 2 over the 3, with cement in there. Now, the only thing I have against doing this is that you get a big bulge here where that shock cord is folded in on itself. So I actually do this a little bit differently. There's actually 2 ways. I'm going to show you the way I usually do. I just offset this a little. The alternative is you can cut this lengthwise and make it into kind of a fork that spreads across. In both ways, what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of stacking that we do on the shock cord itself. Okay, now here we're going to add more cement. Now, if this is a flight rocket, you would never, ever do this, because the cement weakens the shock cord a lot. Alright, so get the cement on both sides of the shock cord. Now we're going to fold this up as before, but now as we fold it over, it's laying beside itself instead of over itself here. Alright, we're going to squish out the excess glue, which is something you would normally do if this were white or wood glue. And I'm going to impart a curvature to it like this that's going to make it easier to put into the tube. And now the trick is to do this without making a really big mess. I'm going to take off one glove here. Okay, and I'm going to take my rocket. Now, this is trying to peel itself up, and that's also because we're using cement rather than wood glue. I'm going to put a little more on here, and even that is trying to come loose again. So move that over. Pull that out of the way. Now the main thing is here, this needs to be down about 1.5 inches, and it's trying to come apart. Okay, but at minimum this needs to go down far enough that the nose cone shoulder does not impinge upon it when everything's packed up. You also want to get this as flat as possible so that it does not get caught with the parachute. And I've seen student rockets, and even my own sometimes, where this gets kind of lumpy because it was over glued or for whatever reason, and then those lumps caught onto the parachute, preventing it from ejecting properly. Okay, so I'm just keeping even pressure on this to keep it flat while that glue dries. Now I'm going to hold it like this for a couple of minutes, so I'm going to pause the recording here and come back when it's done. The glue on the shock cord mount is still drying, but we can work on the other end here. And so we're going to tie this to the nose cone. Now if you're using the tie on the parachute method, where the parachute's permanently attached here, do that first. Okay. If you're using the snap swivel, add the parachute after you do this. So here we're just going to move our shock cord through the eyelet there. We're going to tie a double knot or 2 half hitches. And normally, if this were a flight rocket, I would put just a little dab of white glue or wood glue on the knot to keep it from moving. We don't have to do it, and I'm just going to cut this back. So we're going to cut this back to about 1/4 inch or about 5 to 6 millimeters there. And then we just want to make sure that when we put this into the body tube that this does not get caught against the shoulder. And that's why I've shortened it here. Okay, and then we can put on our parachute by just clipping that in. Okay, it can move freely there. And now we just need to wait for all of our glue to dry. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll do the final assembly. All of my glue is now dry, and before you do this next step you want to make sure that everything is fully dried, otherwise you'll end up gluing the wadding in. So if we're going to set this up as if we were going to launch it, take 3 pieces of wadding here. And we'll just loosely crumple each one of those into a small ball and stuff it down inside. Alright, and then fold your parachute in your preferred method. The instructions show having the shroud lines all wrapped around the parachute. I don't like to do that. Instead, I'm going to fold my parachute so we get kind of a triangle shape going here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my shroud lines about halfway down their distance, and I'm going to fold them up in like that. Okay, so the folds up in here. Alright, then I'm going to take the parachute itself and kind of wrap it around the shroud lines. Like that. Oop, tuck that one in. We actually don't want a lot of shroud lines showing here. Alright, I'm going to fold that over, and then I'm going to fold the edges in again so I get kind of a cylinder here. Okay, now I'm going to tuck most of the shock cord down inside. Okay, and that'll be followed by the parachute itself, and then any remaining shock cord can go on top there. Right, and we're going to put the nose on, making sure nothing gets caught, and there we have it. Okay, now we can put our fake motor in here. Make sure you get it going the right way with the nozzle facing aft. All right, and that'll just slide there. If you really wanted to, you could glue that in, but you don't have to. That way you can take it out to show people if you like. Alright, and that's the whole model. So that's my Phantom. I would say have a great flight and a safe recovery, but this guy is not going to fly. But I do hope you enjoyed building this with me. And do make the most out of this to explain our hobby to other people who might be interested.